everyone, this is Dr. Ilyas from the Department of Education, Hazara University, Mansehra. In today's presentation, we will discuss ethnographic research. So we will confine ourselves to its definition and to the general procedure that is involved in ethnographic research. So we will begin with its general definition. And so let's see how we can actually define it. Ethnographic research actually is research that, it is also called ethnography. So it is a research that has its origin in anthropology. And so it has generally been defined as research that is aimed at the in-depth exploration and analysis of a cultural group in order to understand and report on some aspects, features, peculiarities, or in other words, parameters of the group by discovering certain overarching patterns of the collective behavior. One of the characteristics of ethnographic research actually is exploring, understanding, and explaining particular cultural behaviors or patterns of cultural behavior through the perspectives of the people or through the perspectives of the members of that particular culture. The parameters that are generally explored or on the basis of which an ethnography is actually defined include geography, traditions, religion, education, or common experience. So the group that is being studied in ethnographies might be a group because of living in a particular geographical location. It might be following certain traditions that are of interest to the ethnographic researcher. It might be a particular religious group. It might have gone through a particular educational experience or some other experience that the members of the group have commonly been exposed to. Generally, ethnographic studies are studies that are called non-interventionist, or in other words, these follow the non-interventionist approach. And so they are also called naturalistic studies, or studies that take place in a naturally occurring environment, and naturally occurring phenomena are being studied. And the settings are natural and non-contrived, such as is the case with experimental studies. Now, we will move on to some more details of this particular research, or what ethnographic research is. The culture group being studied could be a large group, such as a particular geographical area populated by a large group of people with some distinct socio-cultural and historical features. For example, a country. And so such ethnographies which involve larger groups are called macro-ethnographies or macro-ethnographic research studies. Similarly, the group could also be smaller groups, and that actually means a particular school or even a classroom in the educational context, if you are conducting ethnography in an educational context. So such studies are generally called micro-ethnographies. Then ethnographies are not confined to a particular field of knowledge or field of study. There is a variety of fields where ethnographies have been used, and so ethnography is quite an extensive and expansive field of research. And so these fields might include anthropology, where it has traditionally been originated from, and sociology, psychology, and education. As someone who belongs to the field of education, I would give an example from the field of education. An example of an ethnographic study could be a study, could be an in-depth study of the impact of a college culture on students' perceptions regarding student-teacher relationship. So let's say an ethnographic researcher, an educationist, an educational researcher who would like to take an ethnographic research design to use and to understand the impact of a particular college culture or a school culture or a university culture on the students' perceptions regarding student-teacher relationship. So what should be the nature of student-teacher relationship, or what is the nature of student-teacher relationship, is a question, a qualitative question that could be explored through the use of the ethnographic research design. By studying this particular research question in an in-depth study in a school or a college or university or any educational institutions. Now, there are certain features that have been associated with ethnographic research, and these features include that ethnographic research is actually consist of extensive field work, and as a result they are time consuming because of the extensive field work and the extensive data that is actually gathered in a natural setting, and they are often time consuming. Similarly, multiple data collection methods are generally used. The focus is actually on exploring open questions, and so as a result the means, the end justifies means, and so the end is finding answer to the question, and as a result multiple data collection methods including interviews, observations, document analysis, and questionnaires, etc. are used. That actually means generally the most often qualitative research, qualitative data collection techniques are used, but in some cases quantitative data could also be used in ethnographic researches. The approach to data analysis in ethnographies is generally amic approach, which actually means that the researcher is interpreting the data that is coming in from the perspectives of the participants. So how the participants in a particular cultural group interpret their views and their practices, and or their traditions and the other aspects of culture. So interpretation from the perspective of the perspectives of the participants is an important approach to data analysis in ethnographic studies. In this brief presentation, I would like to actually end this presentation with a general ethnographic research process. In other words, how does a general ethnographic research takes place? So it begins with a research problem or a research question that is being formulated by the researcher. Generally, open questions are actually selected, and then in order to find answer to that particular research problem or research question, the next step generally is selecting a case or a site for conducting that particular study, for finding answer to these research questions or to find answer to the research problem. The next thing on the minds of the ethnographic researchers is to get access. So generally, because the ethnographers have to spend a substantial amount of time, sometimes they have to spend even months and years inside a particular research site. So access is quite important, and adequate access actually means getting permission to get into the site for data collection. Then the next thing is data collection, and that actually includes the data collection through these various using various techniques, including interviews, observations, and questionnaires, and so on. And then comes the data analysis process, which actually is continues throughout the process. So it's not something like first you collect all data and then you start analysis. Generally, in most qualitative researches, this does not happen. It actually happens in a more reiterative cyclic process. So you keep on collecting data and keep on analyzing data. But this is one of the steps that is involved in the ethnographic research. And then, of course, reporting. So most researches, or rather all research processes, involve the process of reporting. So what research problem was actually explored, how was or when was or how was the research site, and or why was the research site selected, then how was the access achieved to the sources of data, how was or when was actually data collected, and what went through during the process of analysis. All of these are actually part of the ethnographic